Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So you may remember that a little while ago we looked at the first two chapters of the book Sexy Girls, How Hot is Too Hot by Haley DeMarco, who you may recognise as the author of several other awful books written for teenage Christians. To summarise that video on the first part of this book that we're going to be looking at today, basically we found out that Haley, a Christian woman, thinks that all men are uncontrollable animals who will sexually assault any woman they see who is exposing a bit of wrist, or if they're feeling especially scandalous, a bra strap. You can't even see mine. There we go. Look at the scandal there. And therefore, according to Haley, to paraphrase, it is the wicked, disgusting girl's responsibility to cover up completely so they don't tempt the poor, innocent, helpless men who just can't control their actions. We also did some of the incredibly cringy quizzes that were in the book, in which we learned that I am sometimes sexy and apparently know nothing about men. So we are going to continue reading this book and maybe try and learn something, starting with chapter 3, which is titled, Is Your Closet Too Hot? You Are What You Wear. Let's start with something that Haley describes as creepy. She writes, teenage guys aren't the only ones who have those masculine hormones raging in their loins. It's guys, men of all ages. From the 22-year-old clerk at the checkout line to the 43-year-old pastor behind the pulpit. They are all men, and they are all turned on by what they see. So it's like this. If you go out sporting your sexiest top that shows just enough of your voluptuous chest and your totally hip miniskirt ever so slightly revealing your lacy undies placed just above the waistband, don't be surprised when I tell you that not only is the hottie down the hall checking you out, but every guy from 13 to 83 is catching a glimpse, and their mouths are watering. Honestly, I find the creepiest thing here is the detail in which Haley describes teenagers' bodies and clothing and Is anyone else just a little disturbed by that? Feels a little like r/men writing women, but instead it's Haley writing teenagers. Can you jump over and say hi before we get any further? Say hello. Hello. I love you. I'm a sleepy girl, aren't you? I love you. I love you. You're so gorgeous. You're so gorgeous. And of course, throughout all of this that Haley is describing, we have to feel sorry for the men because they are the true victims in all of this, you know, because when a girl dresses comfortably and for herself, all these poor men have to suffer and work so hard because, as Haley says, sure, some of them might try to look away, but it's hard work. And then they have to fight with their minds and those memories of your supple body. Oh my god, poor men. They have it difficult, don't they? It's so tough for them. Don't you just feel for them? And I mean, it's not just one or two men. It's all of them suffering and struggling, you know, because of course we have to remember that in this world that Haley DeMarco's created in her mind, gay men don't exist, asexual men don't exist, and all the men that do exist are worse than brainless animals who are controlled by their penises, who just can't resist thrusting it at every bare shoulder they see. Haley goes on to write that means that if you walk down the street and see a bench lined with 70-year-old men, they are looking at your breasts and smacking their lips. You are... You just hit me with your tail, baby. You are every bit as sexy to the old guy as you are to your target guy. And you think that's gross? Just think about the poor pastor who has to stand in front of his congregation all morning and talk about God while trying to avoid seeing your breasts popping out from your baby doll top. Again, it seems to me that Haley is the one here spending all her time thinking about teenage girls' breasts popping out of their tops, not necessarily all these creepy men in the world. Hey, at least on the bright side, or if we can call it that, it's nice to see a Christian acknowledge that, you know, pastors and vicars and all those people, like religious people in positions of power, acknowledge that they can be creepy and predatory as well instead of trying to cover it up. So it's nice to see them acknowledge that for once, even if it's not nice that they do that in the first place, you know. In possibly the most disgusting part of the book so far, Haley writes, showing off more than what you're willing to give a guy is what we call false advertising. A girl who shows her tummy has to understand that guys think this means she's ready and willing for him to run his hands all over it. He's got sex on his mind as soon as he sees that the doorway to her intimate self says, open for business, like that. No. There is no false advertising because Women are not commodities. We're not objects. We're not marketable possessions. We're not something that you buy. We are not for sale. Are we being? No. You're a human being and you deserve to be treated with respect. It doesn't matter if you're wrapped in 10 layers of woolen blankets or if you're completely naked. Doesn't matter what you're wearing. No one can touch you without your permission, and no one should ever think that they can. And no one, like Hayley here, should ever tell someone that they have a right to touch you based on what you're wearing. Or to tell people that they deserve to be touched because of what they're wearing, because you don't. Not without your consent. What we should be teaching people is that. It's about consent. We should be teaching people consent, is what I'm trying to say. Teaching people that it doesn't matter what people are wearing or doing or who they are. Without their consent, you do not touch someone. You don't enter someone's personal space without their consent. You don't do anything without a person's consent. Do you, Kobe Bear? No, are you okay? Do you have your consent for pets? Yes. Actually, that's a really good example. It's like a dog, right? Dogs aren't able to give verbal consent, obviously, because as much as I wish you could, you can't speak. You try. You grumble and talk to me all the time, don't you? But sadly, it's not English. But with a dog, dogs are naked. Dogs are always there. Dogs are always looking adorable, so you want to pet them. But before you touch them, you need to gain consent. And you do that by reaching out to them and letting them come to you and building up that relationship and boundaries. It doesn't matter if a dog's wearing clothes or if a dog's naked. You don't touch a dog without a dog's consent. Apply that same logic to people, and you're there. Hayley, though, has this all completely backwards, and it's an incredibly dangerous and harmful message to be teaching people, especially young people and teenagers. She keeps doubling down on it, though, right? She says, meaning this hypothetical girl, she doesn't realise that the tummy is the doorway to, well, the parts guys are longing to see and touch. She thinks it's just the style. I look cute, and who does it hurt? Let me answer that. It hurts the guy who thinks he might get something from you because of what you've got on the menu, but then finds out when you reject him that you're just a tease. It hurts the Christian guy who wants to honour God and with his thoughts, but can't quit thinking about your body. I hate words and labels like tease because it implies that so many things other than actual consent are consent, and that's not true. Does that make... Let me explain a bit more. So, like, flirting, touching, acting a certain way towards a person can be indicators that you're interested in them and want some kind of sexual relationship, but they aren't a promise of sex. They aren't consent in themselves. No matter how you act towards someone or how someone acts towards you, sex is never a right. It's a privilege. You know, it's something that you grant someone the privilege to have. To touch you is a privilege, not a right. And flirting does not give someone a right to touch you. Flirting does not give someone a right to have sex with you. Consent gives them the privilege to do that, but consent can be given or revoked at any time. And that's something that's very important to remember. If you've given consent to have sex with someone and partway through you feel uncomfortable, you have every right to say stop. It doesn't make you a tease or any of these other disturbing, disgusting labels. It means you're a human being in control of your own body, and you have the right to say who touches you, in what ways, and when. I'm sick of all these shaming tactics, which are mostly just aimed at women, because it's absolutely disgusting. It's sexist, it's awful, it's patronising, it's objectifying, it's wrong. And let's be honest, right? Even if it does hurt a man's feelings, I would much rather a man's feelings are hurt because he got the wrong impression and was rejected than a woman or another person was actually hurt because no one, including Hayley, bothered to teach them about consent. And I can't believe that is such a radical idea. Hayley goes on to say, and it hurts you when you suddenly sink to the status of nice stomach and are overlooked as a beautiful, intelligent, sensitive and caring human being. It reduces you to a piece of meat on a menu. It becomes all about the body and nothing else even comes into focus. No, I'm sorry, but that's just completely wrong. And please allow me to use myself as an example. I am a woman who is intelligent and sensitive and caring, and I happen to have a nice stomach. I like my tummy. It's always been very nice. I'm very happy with it. I'm comfortable with it. Yes. And it's surprisingly strong. I like my tummy. But it's not an either-or situation. It's not I'm either intelligent or have a nice tummy. I have both. It's not I'm either caring and have a nice tummy. I'd like to think it's both. What do you think? You're the judge of that, aren't you? All these things are a part of me. Intelligence, caring, tummy. All parts of me. And if someone can only see one of those parts, for example, the tummy and not the intelligence, then that's their fault. That's something they're missing, not me. I'm the one who is a multi-dimensional, well-rounded human, and if another person is so narrow-minded and basic that they can only see, ooh, look a tummy, and not, ooh, look, an intelligent person who's comfortable and happy with their body, then that's their problem and something they need to work on, not me. I'm not going to hide a part of myself because someone else can't see past it. It's up to them to get over that wall, not me to pretend that isn't there, just so they can see this other stuff. You know what I mean? It's all a part of me. Why should I be ashamed of one part of me because this person has an issue? And this same goes for all of you. Work on being awesome people and having all these multifaceted, wonderful things about you. And also work when it comes to other people on seeing all the awesome aspects of them and not just one single thing, you know. Stop reducing people down to one single characteristic. And if someone does it to you, remember that they're the ones lacking, not you. Haley goes on to write, a lot of girls get mad when guys treat them too sexually. When guys call them names or make rude advances or say nasty stuff to them, they get all in a huff. How can you talk to me like that? What does he think I am, a piece of meat? And the answer is yes. That's exactly what he thinks of you, because that's how you've marketed yourself. The sign in front of your establishment screams sex. The banner on your ad yells, use me. Guys' eyes become clouded by flesh and they lose all sight of the girl inside that flesh. So if you show off parts of you that turn guys on, don't be all upset when they treat you like a sex object. Don't blame them for your PR campaign. You designed it and created the image you wanted to sell to the world. They're just hoping to get a chance to purchase or steal a piece of you. Revolting. Stop with the victim blaming. Stop it. It is in no way a young girl's fault if someone else is abusive towards them in this way, you know, treating them badly, saying nasty stuff or whatever. No way. Not the girl's fault or the person's fault. If you want an example, right, take my last month living in London versus my first month living in Leeds, right? So every morning I take Kyra for a walk, obviously, is what we do. And mostly we kind of go walking around the residential areas of the cities that we lived in. And for this, because it's early in the morning and I'm lazy and rubbish with mornings and stuff, I normally wear lazy, comfy clothes, like leggings and a t-shirt or a hoodie or something like that, right? You know, stuff. Both my walks in London and Leeds led me past areas with workmen working, you know, builders or people working on the street, that kind of thing. So both places I'm wearing similar clothes, some of those clothes being quite tight, like the leggings, some being quite baggy, like the hoodies. Both those walks were in the same kind of areas of the cities that I lived in. Both of them took us past the same kinds of people. So I was behaving exactly the same. What was different was how the men behaved to me in those two cities. In London, I was never catcalled once. Not even once. No one did anything disrespectful to me. I felt very safe. Yeah, no one said anything. No one made me uncomfortable. No one made me feel like I was anything other than a woman walking a dog. It was great. My first month in Leeds, however, and this is still going on, have been revolting, because I have never been catcalled so much as I have here. And it's not just the frequency of how it happens, but it's the, I guess you could say, the severity of the stuff that is said to me is repulsive. The things that men think they can shout from their car windows as I'm just out walking my dog is revolting. I was no different in either of those situations. What was different is the kinds of men who were around to act that way. Maybe something to do with who they were, how they'd been brought up, what their values were, what they'd been taught, maybe what their education was, maybe what their working background was, I don't know. But the point is, if I was behaving exactly the same way in both situations, and I was, and it was my fault how men reacted to me, then surely the men in London and Leeds would treat me in the same way. But they didn't. The men in London made me feel safe and secure, and they were decent human beings who let me walk my dog in safety and peace. And the men that I've experienced in Leeds have been, not all of them obviously, but the ones I've experienced have been disgusting, scummy animals who make me feel like crap and make me feel unsafe to go out sometimes. And that's on those men, not me. To assume that I'm the one who's causing this in some way is stupid, it's ignoring patterns, it's disgusting, and the sooner people like Haley DeMarco and everyone else who spews this victim-blaming crap realise this, the sooner we can get to actually calling out these people and educating more people into why this is wrong and why they shouldn't be doing this, and we can actually make people, especially women, feel safe again. If it was down to me and what I was wearing or how I was behaving, then I would have experienced the same thing in London and Leeds, but I didn't. And therefore it's not my fault, it's the fault of the people doing this disgusting behaviour. And that's something that's very, very important to remember. If you've ever been catcalled, if someone's ever made you feel unsafe or uncomfortable or said something disgusting to you, that is not your fault. It is entirely them. And I know it's hard and it's scary and it's not pleasant. And it can make you feel very, very powerless when you realise that it's their fault and not yours, and that technically there's nothing you can really do about it. But that's why it's important to have these conversations and make sure everyone knows, so we can start educating people and hopefully try and change things so less and less people have to go through that crap. Back to the book, and Haley says, "We can't get mad at guys for being guys." But yes, we can, because treating women as an object isn't guys being guys. It's people being scummy people. It's not a man thing, it's a crappy person thing. And then she goes on to try and use the Bible to back up her ridiculous offensive claims, but it's just a bunch of twisting vague statements, really. And then the next section of the book talks about self-esteem and how we don't really need it. I'll read you an abridged version of this section, right? Just picking out a few of the interesting bits. What you think about yourself is important. Your thoughts manifest in all kinds of ways. How you walk, how you talk, how you carry yourself. But is self-esteem really where it's at? Self-esteem is a precarious thing. It can go up and down based on the outfit of the day. So maybe you should start thinking about a different kind of esteem. After all, God's word never tells us that we should esteem ourselves. Instead, we should be humble, not thinking too highly of ourselves. Self-esteem is too hard to keep up. It's too hard to manage. But what if there were another kind of esteem that was more rock solid, less likely to change with the currents? The way I see it, self-esteem is a weak foundation, and the only real foundation for a good mental outlook and joyful spirit is God-esteem. When you put your esteem in Him and His plans for you, you are never disappointed. Bad things can be said about you, and you aren't fazed, because you are hooked up to the Creator of the universe, and He says different of you. God-esteem definitely has more power than self-esteem. This is another thing that bothers me a hell of a lot, right? And it's something I've seen a lot and that I've touched on briefly in other videos. But a lot of religious people like Haley here, and like many Christian YouTubers that we've spoken about on this channel, preach this idea that you should live your life by trusting God, not yourself, or have confidence in God, not yourself, or don't listen to yourself, only listen to God. And while it might sound like it's coming from a place of caring, I honestly think it's coming from a place of trying to control people, even if the people who are preaching and teaching this stuff don't realise that that's what they're doing. Confident people with high self-esteem who know how to think for themselves and listen to themselves are not easy people to control. They're strong, they're independent, and that is a threat to organised religion. But you tell people not to bother spending time working on themselves, not to better themselves, not to have confidence in themselves, not to think for themselves, and they become a lot easier to control. Take that a step further and tell people, don't think for yourself, only listen to this one book /God/our teaching. Tell people, don't question this, only use our teachings as a source for your confidence, for example, and you've got everything you need to fully control them. And that's why I hate this kind of stuff, because it's not about helping people, it's not about trying to make anyone better, it's about control. Chapter 4 is just a rant about how apparently most tattoos and piercings are inherently sexual because Haley says so, and even when they aren't sexual, they're bad anyway, apparently. It's boring, so we'll just skip it and go to chapter 5, which is called The Art of the Face. Makeup, friend or foe? Because we all know I'm a huge fan of makeup and having a lot of fun with it and doing creative things with it, so I figured this one would be a giggle. Haley writes, "Now, I'm not bashing makeup. I wear makeup, but what I want you to consider is the amount, the colours, and the kind of makeup that you wear. We usually wear makeup for one of two reasons. One is to look healthier, maybe cover up zits and dark circles, and to just feel better. The other is to look older, which in turn makes you look sexier." This is such a vast oversimplification and misses out a hell of a lot. What about people who wear it because they enjoy the artistic process of applying makeup, like me? What about people who are using makeup to create a character or art, like I often do? What about the people who just want to express a part of their personality through makeup by using maybe certain colours or patterns or designs or you know, to say something about themselves? What about the people who don't use makeup to appear older, but to appear younger? What about people who wear certain bits of makeup for religious or spiritual or traditional reasons, for example? There's so many more as well. Like, maybe you guys can tell me in the comments, like, if you wear makeup, why do you choose to wear it? Because it's a lot more than just what Hayley's suggesting here. There are many, many reasons, and this is just incredibly, like, narrow-minded. Then, in a bit that kind of makes me a bit uncomfortable, she actually brings up JonBenet Ramsey and describes her as the little beauty queen who was brutally killed. In her picture, she looks like a miniature adult, so much so that she turned on some grown men who created shrines to her and watched every pageant she was in. It just feels in very bad taste to me. So I don't know how many of you guys know the JonBenet Ramsey case, but it's one that I've actually been, like, very, very interested in, and I've watched, like, every documentary on it and read a few books and stuff, and I find it an incredibly sad but also kind of fascinating case. It's one that I would love to see some justice in, and one that I have a theory of my own there. But anyway, that's not the point. And the thing is as well, don't get me wrong, right? I am very against pageants and stuff. I don't like it. I thoroughly dislike them for sexualizing children, for putting unnecessary amounts of pressure on young kids, and for a bunch of other reasons. But in this case here, using a child murder victim, whose death wasn't even anything probably to do with pageants, it was probably someone in her family, but using a child's murder to prove your point about makeup feels wrong as hell to me. I don't like it. Hayley says, the truth is, the more makeup, the more sex the guy thinks he's gonna get, or at least the more he'll fantasize about. Again, because older girls are usually more sexually experienced than younger ones. It isn't even a subliminal thing anymore. Tons of makeup is an invitation to guys of all ages to come onto you. No, it's not. And let's be honest, you can't just naively say more makeup is more sexual, because look at these two photos, for example, right? In one, I'm wearing a hell of a lot more makeup, but clearly the aim isn't to appear sexually attractive at all. It was a Halloween shoot with the goal of appearing powerful but also kind of scary. A vampire. Sexual appeal was the last thing we were considering. So it's not just as simple as what Hayley's saying. And a person can wear a lot of makeup without it wanting to be to attract someone. Like I say, it can be for fun, for art, to be creative, to make yourself feel good, to give off a certain impression about you, or fit in with a certain group and make certain friends. Hayley's just oversimplifying in a way that honestly could be quite harmful to a lot of people's self-esteem. Not that she cares about self-esteem, clearly, so it's probably her goal. She makes other ridiculous statements like, tons of makeup is an invitation to guys of all ages to come onto you, which is ridiculous, because no, it's not. And if there are people out there who think this way, then they need to change that, not the ones who enjoy wearing makeup. And then she ends the chapter by having a little moan about plastic surgery, because of course she does. And that's where we're going to end this today. There is more to this book, so hopefully we'll cover this in another video or two, I'm not sure. And there are, of course, more of Hayley DeMarco and her husband's books for us to read and have a look at if you like this kind of debunking religious texts kind of stuff. What I have been interested in trying to find is religious books that are aimed at kind of like teenagers and young people, which aren't just Christian, that come from other religions. So if you have any other suggestions there for ones you'd like me to read and review, please let me know down in the comments. But for now, thank you for watching today. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe, because I make lots of videos talking about book reviews and poetry and science and history and general social commentary stuff, and I try and make it all entertaining and educational at the same time. It's something I try and do. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thank you to everyone who has watched today. I appreciate you guys a hell of a lot, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Also, Kara's sleeping on the bed, but she says goodnight as well.